The following program is an opinion program. The opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of this program are not the opinions of the management, staff, and advertisers of this station. Please direct all criticism, concern, and adulation to the hosts of this program.
Welcome to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. I'm a radio talk show host. You can hear my show Monday through Friday from 5 to 9 a.m. on WVNN in Huntsville, from 10 until 11 on Talk 99.5 in Birmingham, and News Radio 1440 a.m. Down in Montgomery. And then you can hear it again from 3 until 4 on the UMP in Huntsville. You can hear me everywhere. That's basically the gist of it. Here, as always, except for last week, Mecca Music. She is the CEO of 256today.com. Smart news for smart people. We appreciate her being here. We got Jeff Poor coming up, another smart guy from FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile. We'll talk with him about stuff going on around the state and the country and on the coast. And then I've got a parting shot for you about Project 2025. Ooh, it's spooky. It's in October. Stay tuned for that. Right now, though, let's go ahead and get to the 2-minute warning. All right, Hurricane Milton, just the latest hurricane to hit the United States. Florida gets the brunt of that so far. Hopefully off it goes into the Atlantic and goes somewhere else. And we don't have to worry about that. But as someone who lived in Florida before, I can remember plenty of hurricanes that turned around and came back. So just be aware weather changes, and that's what happens. Also what happens is people never miss out on an opportunity to point out what's going on around the world and think about how they can benefit from it. And here's a way that Hurricane Milton is being used here in the great state of Alabama to bring light to certain issues. I-65. If you've watched television, you have seen instances in the past, and maybe in this instance as well, where the highway is packed with cars trying to leave, people trying to get out of those areas. As someone who grew up in the Tampa Bay region, I never evacuated once. Maybe my parents weren't that smart, I don't know. But when people evacuate, the roads become a mess. Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth saw this and said, this is another reason why we should consider expanding I-65. Now, Becca, he's talked about this before for economic reasons.
Very smart, popular opinion. Anybody who's driven to the beach knows that, oh, wow, it'd be great if this was a little wider.
But getting away from the beach is what this is all about.
Well, yes, in this case.
Yeah, and expanding it even further. It's a great opportunity to utilize that and explain what's going on.
And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. That would be beneficial in a situation like this if Alabama coastal residents were in this situation.
And they would have to get away, and they'd have to be able to use it. 65, though, very expensive process.
Very.
To do that, they want a 6-lane and 8-lane, just 10-lane, and all the way from the ocean all the way up into Tennessee, and then you can have like a bottleneck going to get lottery tickets or something. But Ainsworth has been on top of this issue for a long time.
Yes.
But it looks like Kay Ivey just is not even interested in engaging in this.
In 65, so I thought part of this topic was going to be like, oh, we're sending utility crews. You know, the state parks are open and
they're
things
sending
like
utility
that.
crews.
Okay,
State parks are open.
Never mind.
Okay, yeah, but I did actually.
But no, she is not thrilled with that idea or the process or the money.
She's watching Highway 43 over there, which people I think call it from the Mobile to Tuscaloosa pathway, because that's basically all it's for.
Yes.
And it's not an economic winner. It's a waste of money. And there are road projects all over the state. We see that. But this is one I think that you're going to see a lot of. And if Will Ainsworth runs for governor, which he's obviously doing, I think you're going to hear a lot about this as well. I can't wait to hear the anti-I-65 conversation. It
will be expensive, and there will be a lot of construction involved, a lot of logistics. I mean, there are things you have to put up with, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly popular issue.
Yeah, I agree with you. We should expand I-65. Next issue. All right, moving on. Let's talk about what's happening right now in the presidential election. You have Kamala Harris, who was considered to be like the front runner up until very recently. Now we're back in a very tight race between the two of them. Kamala Harris is doing a little bit of a media swing through a bunch of very friendly venues. But each one of those is leading to its own little pitfall, because in one of them it's like, should she be going on a sex podcast? Maybe she's an expert. I don't know. The other is a very graphic and vulgar guy who's worn blackface. I mean, that's Howard Stern. And then you had 60 Minutes where she sat down and they were editing her answer go on The View. And The View was actually the least damaging, I thought, to her. But I don't think that's what most people see. I think, but there is a shift heading in Trump's.
No, I would say everybody watches the little clips. Nobody watches full interviews anymore.
God, that's actually a really good point. I hate that. That's a good point. Let's retape this. I think that's actually a really good point. If you can get. God, that's smart.
Thank you.
If you can get, I guess if you get a packaged clip and you get enough people to see it, you're right. And now that you say that, I remember this. I've seen that clip of her saying, I would change nothing. And she was asked it twice and gave basically the same answer. One to Stephen Colbert, where she was drinking Miller High Life, which is my beer. I don't like that. And the other is she was on The View doing it. But let's start with the momentum shift.
Go ahead.
Is she doing this because she needed a momentum shift because it was shifting towards Trump? Yeah, you think
obviously,
so?
All the recent activity, I think they identified, like, hey, we're losing some of that shine, the halo. Like, you kept asking, how long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? Well, I think you have your answer.
Yeah, and they didn't like Kamala Harris before. I mean, that's another thing. Like, nobody liked her before. Nobody was like, oh, Kamala Harris, the greatest vice president ever. That was nobody said those things. And then there was like, oh, she's so great. But I think they got into this mode, like in the media, where they're like, we're doing all this work for you. We're on the same side. It reminds me of the guy that worked for AL.com that was getting punched by the BLM protesters. On his face, he had this, we're on the same side. Why are you doing this? And this was sort of the whole thing. They were upset that she wasn't playing nice with them. And I think that 60 Minutes interview was way harder than anyone thought it was going to go, and it didn't go well. My biggest problem with what happened.
What do you mean it didn't go well? You mean for her?
Yeah, she didn't have answers to questions she knew were coming.
Okay.
Like, what would you do differently? Afghanistan, immigration, the economy, just name something. No, everything's fine. The 60-minute interview, they're having to edit the answers because she's rambling like a Dale Jackson-esque rant on a TV show.
Oh, no.
But you're not supposed to do that if you're supposed to be the vice president. You're running. I don't think this is good, but you've given me something to think about. Is the small clip more important? Is a small clip that millions of people see in different varieties more damaging than an edited interview that a couple million people see on 60 Minutes? That's a good question. It's a very good question. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about something that is an easy question, and I have been on, someone referred to this as a jihad against newspapers over the last couple of years. Alabama law, this isn't just Alabama law, this happens in a lot of different states across the country, requires, if you're going to do a public notice and the government's going to do something, like ask for a bid or something, they have to put this information out. And it happens in other places too, with real estate and foreclosures and finances and stuff like that. It's a normal thing that you have to buy spots in the newspaper and say, okay, we're making this a public notice. Well, what happened is the Pickens Herald, I believe it is, messed up and cost the state $1.76 million because they screwed up the ad they placed, and the state's going to have to eat that. The question here that I always have in this is, why are we subsidizing these newspapers? No one's going to these newspapers and saying, where are the public notices? Let me look and see.
Well, you need to talk about that. Talk about the money, and there's actually lobbying efforts against this.
Well, lobbying efforts come from the idea that the newspapers will beat up on you if you try to take away one of their resources. This is my message to Republican lawmakers. Stop being cowards. The media is going to beat up on you anyway. Kill them. I mean, I'm sorry. If you're afraid they're going to beat up on you, neuter them. I mean, it's so ridiculous. And I'm telling you, I'm joking, obviously. But if you don't think that people are afraid to fight with people who, by ink by the barrel, it's like the saying, then you're out of your mind. They are terrified of taking on the newspapers.
Which is ridiculous because they are so diminished at this point.
Yes.
I mean, it's
a wounded animal.
It doesn't make, let's take out the politics of it as that.
Sure.
This doesn't make sense. It's not an effective method.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get the word out, it's not effective.
Right. No one's reading the public notices in the newspaper.
No. Unless you have to pay for a newspaper or all these. I mean, there's so many other avenues and options for the public.
As the person that's going to take credit for this when it passes, let me just tell you this.
Of course you are.
I've been working on this for a while.
Yes.
And John Merrill and I had a conversation when he was Secretary of State, and he said, look, Dale, I will take this on. They can send me the notices, and I will run the website that puts all the public notices on it, and we can run it for the whole state out of my office at no new cost. And this was years ago. So hopefully Wes Allen will take on the same task, and the legislature will take it up on it. But the reality is this is a waste of government resources. And by the way, we are talking yearly about hundreds of thousands of dollars out of large municipalities, thousands of dollars out of smaller municipalities, millions of dollars over the state of Alabama every single year. And the newspapers will fight this to the death because it could literally mean their death. Just keep that in mind. All right. Lastly, let's talk about Katie Britt and Donald Trump. This was a pretty interesting story. You've got to pay attention to this story, and you got to wonder, this IVF story has been dogging Alabama for quite some time. There was a ruling this week that said that the clinic that was in the middle of this in vitro fertilization scandal in the state of Alabama, which has now worked its way into the presidential race, that they were not going to get another appeal on this, and they basically will have to go with what it is right now. The Alabama law changed and a bunch of other stuff happened too. Now, all that said, Donald Trump now is saying, like, Katie Britt helped me understand this, the senator from Alabama on in vitro fertilization, which is a complete contrast of how the media has framed her as like anti-IVF because the piece of legislation she didn't support, it had a lot of very much pro-abortion stuff in it. She had her own piece that said that there were carve-outs for like Catholic charities who wouldn't have to do this kind of stuff, and so there's an impasse there. But it's interesting that Katie Britt was like in the forefront of this, which, by the way, Republicans very smart. Katie Britt should be in the forefront of a lot of things for them.
Absolutely.
She's even could be up to be the chairman of the National Senate Campaign Committee, which is good as well. But on this issue, she's right there talking to Trump and helping him understand.
Well, right, she's talking to Trump, and it's not that I don't think Trump was against IVF at any time.
IVF, it seems.
Well, the way
Very
it
few
was.
people.
However, I think listening to her and taking what she says and valuing it, I think that was a very smart political move. I think putting her at the forefront of this issue and letting people know, hey, I'm from Alabama, I'm a mom, we are in favor of IVF. I think that was very smart on all fronts.
Especially because it started here.
Well,
this whole thing started here as well. And I thought Trump handled it very well at the debate when he said, they went like a couple days later and fixed the thing. Why are we pretending that this is like not something that happened? And I thought he handled that very well, and I think her impact on that particular issue was good, and it's good for the state as well.
It is, and the other thing I want to point out is, like, we know Trump is very close with Tuberville, Congressman Strong, and things like that, and we know he's a fan of Katie Britt and Wesley and stuff, but it's nice to see that he also values her opinion and her input.
Well, she was one of the people standing there at the game.
Yeah, she was.
With him, and if you go and look at that picture in the background, there's a monster lurking behind him, and Wesley Britt standing there.
He's so nice. He's just a giant human.
I mean, he's huge.
He's
a huge
so
human
nice.
being. All right, Mecca Music. Thank you very much. When we come back, Jeff Poor will be with us, and we'll talk with him about some of the stuff going on around the state. And we'll be right back on Alabama Politics This Week.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for University Kia. This is my son Grant. He's a busy guy. Chess, piano, basketball, wrestling, baseball, you name it. There's probably some stuff that I missed that my wife will be mad about, but here's the thing. It's important to have reliable transportation. And my friends at University Kia, they take great care of me. I've been driving Sportages my entire life. My wife drives a Telluride now, and it is the perfect vehicle for the busy family. Folks, University Kia, let them take care of you like they've taken care of my family. That's University Kia. Learn more at universitykia.com.
Tom, Grant and Dale Jackson sent you.
Want fun, safe, intelligent fitness programming? Want to build muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, drastically improve range of motion and mobility, and learn proper nutrition to fuel your life with energy and emotional health? Well, come find out why Iron Tribe Fitness is ranked one of the top 5 fitness programs in America. Come find out why personal training and intentionally working on your current movement patterns individually is not only important, it's just another core value that separates Iron Tribe Fitness from other fitness facilities.
To learn how to get your 2-week free pass, go to irontribefitness.com.
Attention! This is a public notice from the Social Security Disability Helpline. If you're one of the millions of Americans who are disabled and unable to work, you may be eligible for disability benefits from Social Security. Receiving benefits is your right. If you suffer from physical or mental disability, whether you're applying for the first time or you've already been denied, we can help. We'll evaluate your situation and deal with Social Security on your behalf. Best of all, there's no fee until you receive your benefits. Remember, we only get paid if you win your case. There are many reasons and conditions that may make you eligible for disability benefits. Many of them you may not be aware of. So if you're disabled and unable to work, call now to get started with your free, no-obligation consultation.
Call 877-744-0750. That's 877-744-0750. 877-744-0750.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. With me, as always, Mecca Music. And our guest this week, Jeff Poor, FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile. Breitbart News, Lanyap, and 1819news.com. He is the editor over there. Let's talk with Jeff. Jeff, before we get started, though, I want to ask you, you're on the coast there in Mobile, in that area. How's the weather? Anything crazy happen over the last couple of weeks that you've had to deal with?
No, what these hurricanes do, though, they suck all the clouds, and even you can see the tide moving out toward the hurricane. I live maybe a half mile, probably a little less than that, from the bay, and you see the water flowing out to where this massive hurricane was. And it's kind of remarkable to watch.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good to hear, and I'm glad everything is doing okay. Let's continue with some issues here inside the great state of Alabama. One of those issues that I think is important for us to talk about is the ALO2. For some reason, the Alabama political reporter's Josh Moon, they're trying to make this issue slavery. Like, they're trying to make an issue of Caroline Dobson being a great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of someone who I think owned slaves. I think that's pretty much the argument they're making. They hit her for going to a segregation academy, basically the idea that you're not like us sort of thing that Josh Moon and the folks at Alabama Political Reporter are doing. Does that have legs in the 2nd Congressional District? Do you think that works?
No, I don't. I believe, you got to kind of know the lay of the land in Monroe County, Alabama, but when do we start holding people responsible for their ancestors? That's not the kind of country we live in. And I reject that. I don't think voters are going to react to that. I don't, it's not like there's a moral equivalency here, but we're going to start judging Josh Moon or anybody else, the Alabama Political Reporter, for what their ancestors had done.
More scary would be judging his kid for what he's doing. That would be the worst thing. But go ahead,
Jeff. Give me more of an overview of this race. We're getting down to it. Where do you feel it's going to go, or do you think it's still a toss-up?
No, I don't know. This was drawn to be a Democrat plus 2-3 district, so it's a heavy lift. But the one thing that makes me think that the Republican has a shot here, if you go look at AL1 and Jerry Carl versus Barry Moore, a lot of internals, a lot of polling had Jerry Carl up like 8 points heading into that primary day. And it wasn't that at all. It was Barry Moore pulling it out in the squeaker. I kind of wonder, some of the polling, is it reliable? These are new congressional districts. They're hard to poll. They're hard to kind of create a turnout model. I don't know if the polling means a whole lot, but I do think that the Republican or the more right-of-center candidate does underpoll. So whatever you're hearing out there, I would just be very, very cautious about the polling that's where maybe a lot of us are hearing about.
Besides the polling, do you think it's going to come out to turnout? Is that going to be what decides this race?
Well, so when Kamala Harris jumped in the ticket, now Biden, it was polling, I understand it, +3. When Kamala Harris got on the ticket, it went up +6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. So there's definitely a tangible turnout change since the Democrats put a different person at the top of the ticket.
One thing I found interesting about this is people say, Katie Britt won this district. But I think it's more interesting that Kay Ivey won the district because that was in a non-presidential year. Kay Ivey won the district there sort of as a standalone. Not necessarily a standalone, but it was again, a situation where you could look at a number and say, okay, there's not really much happening here, and she was still able to kind of pull that out. But there wasn't much happening, so maybe this is a little bit different. I guess we'll have to look and see where all of that goes in this race. All right, let's get back to the national level here for just a second because you work at Breitbart and you do some other things nationally. Let's talk about the momentum in this race. Mecca and I were talking about it earlier today. There seems to be a momentum shift here, but it's not sizable by any stretch. I mean, we did see over the last 2 months it go from Trump to Harris with a little bit. Now maybe it's moving back. Some of the swing states, you're seeing polling in Pennsylvania and Michigan. You're seeing a Wisconsin Senate poll, a couple of those that showed the Republican up on the incumbent. I mean, is there a shift towards Republicans or Trump, or how would you put that?
I would put it as a shift for Trump, but not really a shift off Trump. And you and I have talked about this in the past. If you cut away the personalities and the candidates, and all of that is probably a wash in the end, I think. But if it comes down to people just like, well, how is my life right now? What's the status quo? If it becomes a referendum on the status quo, and you look at these two candidates, and especially Trump, who I don't think is as out there as maybe Kamala Harris is right now, who's just going kind of on a media blitz. But if it comes down to more of a referendum on the status quo, Trump's going to win this.
Now, if you talk about a media blitz, before Joe Biden had his meltdown on the debate stage that cost him his position and his dignity, there was a little bit of a media blitz for him as well. And it sort of started turning people against him. The more they ran him out there, people were like, what's wrong with this guy? She's done a little media blitz.
In the past week,
Right.
And I think we're going to have to see the results of that. It'll take another
Well,
week.
the results are like almost embarrassing clips. But who's watching?
As far as voters.
But who's watching that? Like, is that us watching that, or are people seeing it? She goes on something called Call Her Daddy. She goes and does an interview with the corpse of Howard Stern. She goes and sits with a bunch of...
But she's done more in this past week than, the prior 6 weeks,
But my question to Jeff is this. I'm trying to ask Jeff
Sorry.
The question I have to Jeff is there anything here helping her besides maybe some of the framing that you're seeing from the media? Is there anything in here that's jumping out that people go, there she is, that's the person I want to be president?
I mean, okay, so there's definitely been a tactic change here by this campaign. Now, do we think that they were holding off all along and, hey, when we get that month window, we're just going to do nonstop interviews? Or was it, hey, this isn't really tracking well for us. We don't really have any momentum. We're not growing. Have we peaked too early? Have we plateaued? That's why it looks like to me. I don't want to say desperation, but I think I got the feeling from the Harris campaign that they had that big start at the very beginning, that they always thought that they could build off of that, and it really wasn't working. So to me, it feels that way. Now, does it matter to the voters? I mean, they shift tactics for some reason. I don't know that it's going to necessarily dissuade voters. They're like, wow, she's not really doing that well in these interviews. But there's definitely something to saying, well, why did they choose to go in this direction all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think that's true. There's been some questions about the hurricane, and we talked about the hurricane earlier, too. There's some questions about changing the way voting is done. In North Carolina, they've given the individual counties a little bit of leeway to how they're going to change things. We'll see what happens in Florida. A lot of us know this, but this thing went straight down I-4. I mean, it went straight through I-4, Tampa, Orlando. It didn't cause as much destruction as people thought it was going to do, but maybe they changed the way that they do voting in the state of Florida as well. We saw what happened in 2020. Things changed significantly, and a lot of people question whether that was legal or right or any of these other things. Does this change the outcome in either of those states, North Carolina and Florida?
I don't think in Florida. I think Florida is solidly in the red column, and the I-4 corridor is always thought of as a swingy sort of district. So I don't think it changes much there. North Carolina is interesting, but what I think is probably going to be more prevailing of a factor is I think the people there know that the federal government let them down. And the local media there, tune out the national media, isolate it down to the Asheville market, isolate it down to Winston-Salem, Greensboro, the local markets there. And the perception is going to be, wow, the federal government, really, really let us down here. We are not getting the help we needed. I think that is going to be a much bigger deal than any of this worry about what are we going to do, where are we going to vote, or should we change how we vote or whatever, because there's palpable resentment about the way Department of Homeland Security is focusing on other things and not really getting the resources there.
Donald Trump said, look, they take this money from FEMA and they give it to illegal immigrants, and the media is like, no, they don't. And they're like, well, here you are saying they did just that. Here you are saying you did just that. And it's that question's misinformation. How dare you ask it? So it's like, shut up, citizen. We'll handle this. And it just seems like that's not a very compelling message to the people living in
Not
it.
at all. Not at all. And it's a technicality, right, that the money was earmarked to FEMA for migrant resettlement or whatever they want to call it. It wasn't necessarily taken out of this batch of money that was for storm relief. But the notion still exists that, hey, why are they so focused on that and not this? But what's really hurting Republicans, and I don't even spend much time on it, I mean, there's a lot of kind of kooky conspiracy theories that what they're doing, they're conflating that with what the response of the government. You saw Biden talk about it last week on during one of his press conferences, like it's un-American to talk about the hurricane in such a way. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to shield themselves from any criticism about the response by putting it with the crazy talk out there.
Yeah, and Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about weather machines and stuff. If we had a weather machine, why wouldn't you use it against our enemies instead of using it against the state of Florida? Come on, point that weather machine in the right direction if you're going to do that kind of stuff. All right, Jeff Poor, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile. Thank you very much, Jeff, for being here. Mecca's on our way out the door, so the show is clearly going to get a whole lot better. Keep it locked right here on Alabama Politics This Week.
Want fun, safe, intelligent fitness programming? Want to build muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, drastically improve range of motion and mobility, and learn proper nutrition to fuel your life with energy and emotional health? Well, come find out why Iron Tribe Fitness is ranked one of the top 5 fitness programs in America. Come find out why personal training and intentionally working on your current movement patterns individually is not only important, it's just another core value that separates Iron Tribe Fitness from other fitness facilities.
To learn how to get your 2-week free pass, go to irontribefitness.com.
Hey folks, Dale Jackson here for University Kia. This is my son Grant. He's a busy guy. Chess, piano, basketball, wrestling, baseball, you name it. There's probably some stuff that I missed that my wife will be mad about, but here's the thing. It's important to have reliable transportation. And my friends at University Kia, they take great care of me. I've been driving Sportages my entire life. My wife drives a Telluride now, and it is the perfect vehicle for the busy family. Folks, University Kia, let them take care of you like they've taken care of my family. That's University Kia. Learn more at universitykia.com.
Tom, Grant, and Dale Jackson sent you.
You work hard to earn little escapes because doing your best means being your best. So let us help you discover your best at Premier Dental Spa. With our unique blend of cosmetic, dental, and spa-like aesthetic services, you'll leave feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. Make sure the best you is here to stay and book your appointment online today at premierdentalspa.com.
What if you could make a free phone call and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Right now, you could be paying as high as 20% interest. Your new interest rate could be reduced to as low as 2.48%. You can refinance any existing car loan or leased car and save money every month. Take 5 minutes of your time right now. Make this free phone call and learn how to save hundreds of dollars a year by refinancing your existing car loan.
Welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. I am Dale Jackson. Thank you very much for being here. We've got a lot to get into here as we wrap this up. The parting shot, we'll talk about Project 2025, which is very scary, I've been told. So be aware of that. Before we get into that, go to yellowhammernews.com. Sign up for my email blast, and every single morning you'll get the 7 things you should be talking about today delivered directly into your email inbox. That's yellowhammernews.com. All right, let's go ahead and get started on this and get to the parting shot. My party shot this week is directed at the Shamari Figures campaign for Congress in AL02, and anyone reporting and repeating, which is really what it is, this story about Project 2025. They're putting up billboards that say that Project 2025 is coming to Alabama, and Caroline Dobson supports it. They're calling it Caroline Dobson's 2025, Project 2025, which is just ridiculous. Listen, Project 2025 was a plan put together by the Heritage Foundation with a list of their ideas. and they called it a blueprint for the next president. And that doesn't mean that the next president or members of Congress have signed on to it. And if someone has signed on to it, great. Hammer them over the head with it if you don't like it. But instead what we've done is we've called it just basically a catch-all thing full of ideas. So therefore, even ideas that aren't there, just say they're Project 2025 and they're scary. The equivalent of this would be to beat up on Kamala Harris and all Democrats for Kamala Harris's idea. Oh, she doesn't have any ideas, so you can't beat up on her for it. Maybe that's the brilliant campaign strategy. Just don't have any ideas, and therefore you don't have to say anything about anything, and nobody can beat you up on that. That's actually pretty smart, and about what Kamala Harris apparently did, so maybe that's what we should be doing here in the future for all campaigns. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for watching Alabama Politics this week, and we'll talk to you soon.